this and take a look real close at this, because what I'm holding here is about 6.5 ounces of fluid. This is equivalent to about as much pesticide as a single human being would consume in a year if they were eating only conventional produce that was sprayed with the manufacturer's recommended amount of pesticide. So coincidentally, this is about the same as what many studies have proven to be the deadly amount for a single human being as well. So this is 6.5 ounces, the deadly amount is 6.7 ounces. It's pretty much the same. Now, if you're consuming conventional agriculture or conventional produce, you're spreading that out over the course of 365 days, so obviously you're never going to have enough in your body for it to be lethal, but you can imagine that if you're consuming this much pesticide over the course of years, what kind of effect that might have on your body in the long term. So that kind of brings me, I'm just going to drink a little.
Not good. We're convinced you're going through yourself.
All right. So that brings me to why we should consume organic produce. So first things first, what about meat? So there is such thing as organic meat. However, we could get into that and it'd take a whole nother hour. So I'm not really going to talk about organic meat all that much. I'm really going to talk about organic produce and why we should choose organic produce over conventional produce. Meat has a whole nother bunch of issues that if you're really interested in it, you can come talk to me or Yvonne. We can give you, I'm sure, all kinds of information. But just too much to try to pack into one presentation. So first things first, conventional versus organic. What are they? A little history lesson here. Conventional agriculture, modern conventional agriculture has been around for about 70 years. After World War II, a lot of the companies who were charged with producing chemicals that were used during the war realized, well, now we don't have a market to sell to, so what are we going to do with all of these chemicals that we're producing? Well, what they figured out is that they're really good at killing things, weeds and pests. So they started marketing it to farmers and convincing them that, okay, you guys need to use these chemicals in order to produce the amount of food to feed the growing population. That was the birth of conventional agriculture, and so now we have these massive farms that are reliant on synthetic pesticides and synthetic nitrogen, synthetic fertilizers. Organic is the converse of that. Organic has been around since the dawn of man, really. It's just a way to produce food that does not rely on chemicals and is mostly farm-generated substitutes and farm-generated inputs. So things like compost and techniques like crop rotations and things like what are called green manures, which are really just specific crops that are planted to bring nutrients from the air into the soil, things like that. So what organic is trying to do, their philosophy is that they're trying to mimic the natural ecosystem. Conventional is very different. They kind of push away from that, and they see farming as a set of problems that they need to deal with, things like weeds and insects that are detrimental to the crop. They see as problems, and they need quick fixes, so those come in the way of chemicals. Elliot Coleman, a small-scale organic farmer out of Maine, has some really good terminology for these two types of farming. He says conventional is pest negative. And so they see problems, they see the pests, and they need to get rid of them right away. Whereas the organic farmer sees farming as plant positive. So they're looking to build the plant from the soil. So they see everything as a holistic system, and they're just sort of the stewards to push the system in one way or another so that they can support that natural ecosystem in order to grow good, wholesome food. So that kind of explains also the approach to farming. The approach to farming, conventional, is generally large monocultures. It's a single crop that's over acres and acres and acres of land, whereas an organic farm will have a lot of biodiversity, have a lot of smaller crops or smaller fields that are dedicated to crops that they can rotate. So they look very different. So here's two pictures. This lower picture here is picture of what conventional agriculture looks like. It's you can see monoculture is just vast expanses of the same crop. It looks pretty desolate. That's contrasted by organic farming here, which is a small-scale organic farm here. And you can see it's very lush, it's very green, there's a lot of diversity on the farm. You can tell this looks a lot more like an ecosystem than that does. This is relying a lot more on petrochemicals and machinery, whereas this is much more about supporting a natural system of things. All right, so why? All right, so this is what this whole presentation is all about, right? So why should we choose organic over conventional? So right now, I'm actually going to open it up. We don't have a whole lot of people here to open it up to much of a discussion, but we can try to throw some ideas around. I just want to hear what you guys think are reasons why we should choose organic over conventional before I kind of get into my spiel and get into some of the details surrounding those things. So I've got a whiteboard here and a pen, and I'm going to ask for some input and just start throwing ideas out, and we'll kind of throw some ideas in and then I can elaborate on those as I go. So anybody, why should we choose organic over conventional?
Because we don't want all those chemicals in our bodies.
So no chemicals. So
No hormones, no antibiotics.
yeah, no chemicals, hormones. Those kind of go together. So nothing synthetic, right? It's things that are natural. They're coming from other plants or from the soil, or these are inputs that are farm generated and not lab generated chemicals. Anything else?
Well, one of my biggest concerns is that we're, with conventional farming, strip mining the soil basically, and
Right.
there's increasing salination, saltiness in the soil,
Sure.
and something that's called desertification. A lot of those lands are turning into deserts. So to me, it's an ecological sustainability issue as well
Yeah.
as a
Salinization.
personal health issue.
Right. Topsoil loss. Like you said, desertification, same kind of thing. We're really just the landscape is being degenerated. We're just really laying waste to vast expanses of land by planting monocultures. So, anything else?
Economic. It's an economic choice to support local sustainable businesses and to
Yeah.
discourage the continued use of fossil fuels to
Local,
carry
yeah.
food across long
Sure.
distances.
Carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
What about food safety?
Sure, food safety is a good one. And equity issues, social equity.
Tastes better.
Taste.
Could be a damn fine.
Yeah, imagine that. Varieties that actually have taste.
Taste. All right, those are all good. So, I kind of had an idea of what you guys were going to say, and so a lot of these things I'm going to touch on right now. I'll get into them a little bit more detail, but these are all really good things. I'm glad you all kind of have a good foundation. Hopefully, I can throw some things out there that you guys can learn from a little. So first things first. Pesticides, right? So no chemicals, hormones. USDA statistics say that approximately 1 billion pounds of pesticides are used in agriculture every year in the United States. Now, these are synthetic forms of chemicals. By law, organic cannot use synthetic pesticides and synthetic chemicals. So this 1 billion, it's not coming from organic. It's coming from conventional farms. So why is this bad? Why is it bad that we have 1 billion pounds of pesticides that we're spraying on our food every year? Well, number one is we see the residues on our food. They're passed on to the consumer via the food. These pesticides are all designed to be absorbed into the soil and to be absorbed into the plant. So ultimately what's happening is the plant is absorbing these nutrients. They go into the soil, they go through the soil and into the water sources. These are nutrients that are now being absorbed by the plant, and now